Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the virtual 2021 Social Media Forum. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Neil Juris, and I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement here at Morpsey. I'm so excited for this program today. As many of you know, this is one of my favorite events. It's something that I've been doing for a while, even prior to joining Morpsey. So we just want to go over a few quick housekeeping notes. We ask that everyone take this moment now to turn off your camera and to mute yourself. If you have questions, please make sure that you look at our chat feature. It looks like a little dialogue bubble, and feel free to put your questions in there. Today, the forum will focus on 3 areas, and we hope that you'll find informative as you continue to engage your communities through social media. But before we get started, I wanted to yield the floor to Eileen Luby, our Membership Services Officer. So Eileen, I want you to say a few minutes and talk about the impact of this workshop on our membership. The floor is yours, Eileen.
Okay, thank you very much. Boy, I can't think of a more powerful time than what's taking place right now. In all the forums, we've just completed a rural forum series and a number of other events, and it has certainly augmented the importance of good public engagement, using these tools to communicate with constituents, to calm fears, get good information out there, answer questions, be an open government, and really use it as a nice forum for you to communicate. And you have to remember that all of your constituents have very diverse interests and represent different demographics, and this is a critical part of our communication. So thank you for joining us today. We love having this audience. We love taking this time. Let's talk about best practices, what's going on, and keep that conversation going.
Thank you, Eileen. And if you don't know, this is one of the benefits or the perks of being a member of Morpsey is attending these kinds of workshops. So now we want to kind of make this more of an interactive event. So it's time for a quick poll via Mentimeter. So you see the poll question on the screen here. So if you want to follow the directions, you want to go to menti.com and enter in the code. For those that are joining audio only, it's menti, MENTI.com, and then you would enter the code 7315371. And we just have a quick question for you. And so that question is, how many of you have returned back to the office? Okay. And again, just as a housekeeping rule, we would ask that if you're not presenting, to go ahead and turn your camera off and to mute yourself, just because we want to make sure we dedicate the full screen to our presenters today. Okay, so do we need a couple more minutes on the poll? Amanda, what's our pleasure? Are we starting to get in some responses?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
they're still coming in, so let's give it just a few more seconds.
Okay, and then once you have those results, you'll put that up and then we'll resume our regular scheduled programming. Okay. So it seems like someone may be seeing a different question. Which question do we have, Amanda?
How many of you have returned back to the office? That's the question that's currently being answered. We have over 30 responses right now.
Okay, so just want to make sure since we got something. Okay, thank you. Someone says hit the refresh button and it will go to the office one. Okay, wonderful. And thank you everyone for chiming in. This is what we want. We want that kind of interaction. Okay, so we'll give it a couple more seconds, and I'll turn it over to Amanda for our results.
Neo, can you see that on the screen?
Let's see. The only thing that I can see on the screen is the slide. I don't see anything else. So I don't know if you have to pull up a different screen for that. And please bear with us. Teams isn't always that intuitive when it comes to doing this. Other platforms are, but not Teams yet. Oh, here we go. So now we see it. So it looks like many of us are still in a hybrid kind of mode, so working from home and office. And then there's a lot of people that have already returned to work. Wow. Okay, well, good to know. Thank you for providing that information. So back to our program. I'd like to welcome Mallory Grayson and Madeline Turner, both with the Gebben Communication Agency. Mallory Grayson is a communications professional with experience in social media marketing and public relations. She is a social media and influencer specialist for Gebben Communication, where her responsibilities include social media and influencer campaign development, execution, community management, influencer relations, and content marketing. Mallory also serves on the board of directors for the Driven Foundation, and that's with Roy Hall, I believe. With 5 years of experience, her social media campaigns have received awards from PR News, Social Shakeup, and Central Ohio Prism Awards. All right. Her co-presenter is Madeline Turner. She is a social media manager at Gebben Communication with a history of working in the social media, public relations, and marketing space. Her experience and day-to-day responsibilities include content creation, campaign and social strategy development, and execution, community management, and social paid advertising. She strives to creatively connect brands and organizations with others and is always ready to make an impact on her feed. And so these wonderful representatives from Gebben are going to talk about upcoming trends in social media. So ladies, take it away.
Thank you, Neil. Hi, everyone. We're excited to be here today. Thank you for having us. I do apologize in advance. I'm a little under the weather today, so my voice may come off a little funky. But Madeline and I are here from Gebben Communication. For those of you who may not be familiar with Gebben, we are a boutique agency located in downtown Columbus. We specialize in PR and social media, but also digital marketing, social impact work, data and analytics, and even event design and promotion. We work with all types of clients, including B2B, B2C, and while we're based in Columbus, we do service clients throughout the US and in other countries like Australia currently. So we can move to the first slide. So we are here today to talk about some upcoming social media trends, but I think it's important to kind of note where social media started and how it's evolved. At its core, social media is a place to, show off, connect, relate, and escape. Many of you are probably familiar with MySpace, which was really kind of the first major platform out there. But one of the reasons MySpace failed is that the platform really pushed people hard to stay within the website's limits when people really craved engagement and engaging with others and just having better usability. So what MySpace could have learned from today's overall trends is that you have to follow the masses to evolve. Social media is really like a sandbox. Things don't trend just because a brand put it out there. They trend because, a random person might have come up with it or said something in a funny way, and then maybe a meme popped up out of that. And then maybe that turned into a whole new form of communication. For instance, Twitter was a social experiment of its own, only allowing so many characters in a tweet. And people really loved having a little microblogging site, but they also loved other websites and apps like YouTube and wanted to have this combination. And boom, now we have TikTok, which is a platform for short form content, which, as we'll discuss, is booming right now. But at the end of the day, really, people just want to feel connected and like that people can connect to them and relate to them and that they aren't alone. And that's really why social media is so addicting, because we're constantly seeking this validation. And the incredibly easy access consumers have to brands in today's online world feeds into this, which is why it's so important that, brands do keep up with these upcoming trends or face being left behind. But with all this said, we're going to dive into some of the trends that we're excited to see gain momentum this year. And I'll pass it off to Madeline.
Yeah, thanks, Mallory. So one of the biggest trends that has really taken over 2020 and 2021 and that will continue to evolve and dominate social content is video. Video really elevates this relatability factor that Mallory was talking about, that users really turn to social media for. And with users consuming at such a fast rate, content really needs to be interesting and really quick. So with the speed of consumption, attention spans are a lot shorter, and people are looking for captivating content that perhaps resonates stronger than static images. So I'm sure you all have heard of TikTok or seen TikTok. It's really been dominating this scene on social. It's available in over 150 countries, has over 1 billion users, and has been downloaded over 200 million times in the United States. It's big, and it's the most downloaded non-gaming app. And with so many people turning to this platform to get entertained and connect, utilizing video here is really beneficial for brands and influencers alike. Competing with TikTok is Instagram's own video tool, Reels. Just a few weeks ago, the head of Instagram put out a post that said Instagram is, quote, no longer a photo sharing app, which is huge. He kind of went on to say that, you know, over the next 6 months, the app will start to experiment with different types of video. And then he went on to say that people are really looking to Instagram to be entertained, and that we have to embrace that. So Instagram is diving headfirst into this video evolution, and it's pushing and prioritizing Reels as well as stories, especially stories that include video over like a static photo. Additionally, Instagram is prioritizing Reels that are made within the Instagram app, not a third-party source, and that goes for TikTok as well. So with all of this, you know, user-generated content that uses relatable sounds and popular songs and trending formats, this type of content is extremely relevant right now, and it'll only continue to grow in popularity. So yeah, as you can see, video is really coming in hot here, and it's very important that brands kind of evolve to this type of messaging and content. Doing so, you know, is only going to broaden your brand reach and boost your online engagement.
So we can move to the next slide. Another popular and upcoming trend is audio-focused media. This really started to take off just this past year with everybody kind of being stuck from home a lot of the time. It really started with the app Clubhouse. For those who aren't familiar with Clubhouse, it's a social media app for both iOS and Android users who can communicate in voice chat rooms that accommodate groups of thousands of people. The audio-only app hosts live discussions, and it has opportunities to participate through just speaking and listening only. So while Clubhouse kind of really became popular in 2020 during the pandemic, you know, other platforms like Facebook and Twitter are already working on introducing competitor integrations. Twitter's is called Spaces, and it has very similar features. And we really see connecting strictly through audio becoming really popular because it is going to provide this unique ability to connect with thousands of people without that pressure of appearances or having to send messages. An app like Clubhouse make connecting with others more personal, more authentic, and transparent, and they offer a unique opportunity for brands from really any industry to share their message, spread awareness, and create meaningful and lasting connections. I did want to mention one downside to audio-only apps like Clubhouse is that you can only prepare for a conversation subject. So because the nature of it is live, you can never fully plan where the conversation may go. Clubhouse has also run into some issues where you know, users don't like that they can't share things that they're doing within the app outside the app. But Twitter, for example, does let you tweet out your planned spaces that you're going to be hosting. So we're here for that, and we think that, you know, these things are only going to improve from here. But it is a newer trend. Everybody's learning about it as we go. So if you can jump in, we think it's a great opportunity to show that your business is on top of the latest trends. You may love it, you may hate it, but it's definitely worth trying. Next slide, please. So influencer marketing is a pretty big trend that most of you are probably aware of, but we know that it's only going to continue to evolve. But the biggest trend right now, or the biggest change with it right now, is it's no longer about how big an influencer is, but the trust and engagement that an influencer has with their followers. So micro and nano influencers are really becoming the go-to for brand partnerships, and brands are starting to look for more long-term partnerships rather than just one-off projects. This means companies are starting to kind of treat those influencers like brand ambassadors rather. To give you an idea of how big influencer marketing is getting, the market is expected to reach $13.8 billion by the end of the year. And Madeline's actually going to take us into a newer form of influencer marketing, which is podcasts.
Yeah, so we know podcasts have been around and popular for a while, but with podcasts' influence kind of now evolving, they're only going to get bigger. Podcast hosts are using more and more influencers with that, those niche areas of expertise to educate their audiences. And oftentimes the guests that these hosts have on their podcasts serve as influencers for the podcast, the episode, the brand. The guests ultimately, give that podcast more credibility, popularity, and influence. So a lot of hosts are utilizing and speaking to those influencer type people in the community to further promote themselves and their podcast. And while podcasts are utilizing influencers for promotion, there's kind of a trend right now where podcast hosts are also becoming influential themselves. Hosts are entering the social scene as, more than just their podcast. They are entering as their own personality and basically their own celebrity. And with that, podcast downloads, streaming services, engagements are really skyrocketing in that space. These podcast hosts are also using their influence to promote their merch, encourage followers to get involved or donate to, the cases and causes that they care about. And they're also just using their platform to weigh in on relevant online conversation. Podcasts, and their hosts are increasingly becoming a reliable and trusted source of information online. So utilizing that and thinking about podcasts and how to insert your brand there is super important. If we can go to the next slide. Awesome. Looks like a photo didn't quite go through there. That's okay. So it's no secret that the topic of social justice was front and center last year, and it's really continued on through this year, not just in politics, but on social media. One of the bigger trends coming out of 2020 is that brands are not standing on the sidelines anymore. They're really finding ways to insert themselves into conversation and have an opinion. And this is so important because people want to see their favorite brands weigh in on important issues. There's really no more time to be passive, especially on social. So using inclusive language and being authentic and real in what you support as a brand and showing that your brand cares about topics such as diversity and inclusion are really vital to creating brand loyalty and ultimately brand interest and relevance right now. Of course, the biggest drivers of this trend of online social advocacy is Gen Z. Gen Z is connected to everything, technology, their phones, their idols. They're automatically more in the know about social issues and news than any other generation. So therefore, they're more inclined to publicly advocate for the social issues that are most important to them. For Gen Z, silence is a lot more telling than speaking up. Some of the issues that we found that Gen Z is really involved in are mental health, healthcare, higher education, economic security, race, equity, and the environment. So these examples on this slide show brands who are taking a stand and being authentic and transparent about what their company believes in. Ben & Jerry's is very vocal about issues they support and care about, especially on Twitter. And here you can see that Nike has in their Twitter bio hashtag Black Lives Matter and hashtag Stop Asian Hate. So there's some really great examples of brands taking a stand here. And I do want to note that, while speaking up as a brand is so important on social, the work behind it is even more important. People can tell and they know if what you're saying on your social media pages doesn't align with your mission or your actual actions as a company. So always, if your brand believes in it, take action first and then publicly talk about it and share online.
Next slide, please. That photo came in, that's cool. Okay, so a large trend that you may already be familiar with, but that is steadily rising in popularity is virtual and augmented reality, aka VR and AR. And I promise this still screen has a purpose. But Instagram and Snapchat filters have increased in popularity throughout the years, with companies just now kind of starting to utilize them to increase sales, leverage brand visibility, and engage their audience. Capabilities like virtual reality and augmented reality stand to really skyrocket as videos become even more essential to social media algorithms, making it easier for the average person to use, which means brands can start to engage everyday consumers with this technology. And brands are quickly buying into this latest social media trend by creating filters like the one on the screen to kind of promote new products or encourage fan interaction. So this is actually an example, and Amanda, it should play if you click it. If not, that's okay. But at Gavin, we actually worked with a local pizza franchise, and we were able to create this AR filter where it was as simple as being a pizza box above the head that would flip through, kind of like a slot machine, what pizza you were, and it would decide what pizza you were going to be. And people could use that filter and share the result, and it would ultimately advertise and promote the brand without being a direct advertiser or paid influencer. So using this technology, we were really able to engage everyday consumers and help promote the brand all at the same time. Influencers have also taken to trends like this to answer questions and create meaningful engagements in Instagram stories as they seek to represent brands with the newest technology. They're both really great newer technologies, again, both evolving. We're excited to see how they're going to come along and how they'll continue to advance social media, because really they can only get bigger and better from here.
Yeah, if we can go to the next slide. Awesome. So the last trend that we want to talk about today is all about brands monetizing social media. Monetizing is a medium for engagement and creating conversations on social. It's the trend of turning engagement that we love to see into sales. Likes are great, but money is even better here. Organizations are often turning to their social media teams to give them the ROI, return on investment, for their social posts and performance. But oftentimes our everyday social media metrics don't provide that type of ROI. So that's where social sales come in. Instagram already has some really amazing online social shopping capabilities. Like you can see here, this Urban Outfitters post directly links to the products the model is wearing. So when someone is scrolling Instagram, they can tap on that photo and be taken directly to Urban's site, where they can then buy those sunglasses for themselves. So Instagram also has a shopping tab all the way on the right side of the screen here, specifically for you to browse items you'd like to buy or that you have shown interest in. So they're making it super accessible and really easy right here. Twitter is also releasing some shopping capabilities soon, so keep an eye out for that. And as we mentioned earlier, Gen Z has a lot of control over what's trending right now. They want good customer service, and they want it now. So we're seeing a lot of increased customer service through social media with the use of conversational chatbots and automated reminders, such as this message from Blenders reminding me that I left some items in my cart. So they're really making it easier for people to solve a problem, ask questions about products, and ultimately spend more money.
So we can go to the last slide here. But in conclusion, you know, no matter how far social media kind of continues to go down this rabbit hole of monetization, because that is where it naturally is headed, it is always going to be about being social. It may sound silly, but the more you're on social media being social, the better your overall strategy will be. The more you're promoting conversation and engagement on your channels, the better your content will be conversed and engaged with. And the algorithms on these platforms have really shown us this over and over again. So at the end of the day, it's not just about your content, it's really about everyone else's as well. It's about the importance of being present in the space, ready to engage, ready to be noticed, be relatable, transparent, and dare we say, trendy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just getting my screen back together. Okay. All right. So thank you, Mallory and Madeline. As a reminder, housekeeping reminder, if you're not a presenter, please turn your camera off and make sure that you are muted. And if you have questions, please include them in the chat for our open discussion portion of the forum, in which our Diversity, Inclusion, and Engagement Officer, Rolanda Hampton, will be facilitating that discussion. So now it's time for another poll. What social media tool do you use the most? So if you want to pop out your phone, go to the website and enter in the code, and we'll give it a couple minutes and we'll post those results. And Amanda, just tell us when you're ready. Amanda, if you can put the code in the chat. I think some people didn't get an opportunity to record that information. Or if we can repost the code, that would be great. So give us 1 second, please. Okay, thank you, Gina. So again, the code is 731-5371. Okay, so it looks like, much to my chagrin, Facebook is still, oh well, it looks like we still have things coming in, but it looks like Facebook still remains #1. I'm not a Facebook person per se. I definitely want to get my news in real time, so I'm definitely Twitter, so I'm happy to see it's #2. And then we see Instagram, and then coming in 4th is LinkedIn, and 5th is YouTube, which I think is probably different based on your industry. So thank you everyone for your participation. So next, I'm excited to introduce Jackie Murphy. Jackie is a social media strategist, small business consultant. She has been working with Columbus businesses in the hospitality industry for 15+ years. She enjoys helping them grow their presence through organic social media and relationship building. So our next topic of discussion or for our presentation is community engagement. So thank you, Jackie. Take it away. Jackie, I believe you're on mute. Okay. Let's see if we can hear you now. Let's do a quick, okay. Yeah, it still says you're on mute. Is your audio on mute, maybe? Okay, sorry, bear with us. We're having some technical difficulties. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
You just got to
do that. Star
share
six.
your
Okay.
screen. We're all set. Thank you.
I'm getting there.
That's okay. We certainly understand. We see you just fine. Thank you.
Okay. Can you all see that now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much for having me. I have been working with, for a long time now, B2B, B2C, like you had mentioned, hospitality, all kinds of industries, and doing the social media myself. So I know I'm very aware of the trends that have been happening, how engagement works, and my approach to social media is definitely an organic one. It is about that connection and forming those relationships online, which is simpler to do than you really think. So hopefully, you know, some of the things that we're going to go over today, you can implement today, this week, in the near future, to be a more effective communicator. So some of the things we're going to go over, why and how to be social, reviewing your about, your bio, your profile, the types of content that you want to be posting, 6 things you need in your Facebook and Instagram post, and how to engage and interact. And a lot of the emphasis is going to actually be on Instagram, because, I mean, and from that poll that we just saw, a lot of you are already using Facebook and are very familiar with Facebook, but we're still going to touch on some things that might be good reminders for it. But with Instagram being such a visual platform, and people consume with their eyes, Instagram is, you know, one of the trends that's just increasing more and more, and people are on that platform. So let's see, we'll start with why and how to be social. So you might be using your local newspaper, your community center boards, email newsletters to communicate. But again, like I said, you have to go where your audience and community are, and they are on social media every day, consuming content, getting their news, sharing their news. And we want to be where our people are. You know, we're trying to promote our communities, for instance, as a place to live, work, play. We are trying to reach a very broad range of people with very varying interests. We're trying to attract businesses, families, professionals, students, tourists to our areas. So there's a lot of different types of content and things that we can be sharing. I actually think it's you know, quite an easy thing to, you know, you have so many things that you can be sharing, and there's a lot of content that you don't even need to produce or create on your own, but it's a matter of sharing. So, and how do we be social? Social through posting and engaging, and not just, you know, you might have heard it before, posting and ghosting, you know, just putting it out there and just waiting for the magic to happen, for people to engage, assuming everybody's out there, but you have to be very proactive and also engaging with your community. The one thing that I can't stress enough, and you'll probably hear me say it several times, is, you know, to be on social, you want to be of value, you want to be a resource. There's a lot of noise on social media, there's a lot of content out there and a lot of things to be distracted, but as long as what you are putting out there for your constituents, your followers, your groups is, you know, valuable and resourceful. People remember that, and if they know that they can always count on you to get their news, to know what events are going on, to know what's going on in their communities, they will remember that, and they'll share that with others as well. So this may seem silly, but we're going to start with the basics of who you are, and this goes to your about page and your bio and profile. So real quick, when it comes to Facebook, just a good reminder, you probably set up the Facebook page a while ago, or maybe really, really old, but it's just good, especially now. I'm surprised when I go to Facebook pages and go to their about to read about an organization, for instance, that there are items that are missing, like the hours aren't there, the website, contact info is not current. So, and especially since there's been so many changes in the last year or so, just making sure that all of your contact information is up to date. You might have older information in there that needs to be updated. And then making sure that action button is also active on your Facebook page, whether it's the subscribe to our email or you give us a call or something like that. So switching over to Instagram, when it comes to Instagram, a lot of you may or may not have an Instagram account, which I'm really encouraging you to consider creating one. You can post the same content between Facebook and Instagram both, but again, because Instagram is such a hot social media platform, it's very visual, it's very quick, bite-sized, consumable content. I really encourage you to consider being on Instagram if you are not. And then if you are, or you're going to create an Instagram account, you definitely want a professional or business account. And the reason for this is that you get, first of all, it is easier for people to contact you, not just message you in the DMs, but there's an option where they can hit the contact button to get a phone number or an email or both. And then also you have insights, and the insights allow you to see when your followers are on, what days are better to post perhaps, or what times. Also to see what content resonates more with your followers and audience. It might be the type of content, or it might be the type of visual that you use. And so those are all good factors to consider when you move forward with what types of content you want to post. So just a few things, and we're going to go, and I'll show you some examples here coming up. With your Instagram profile, you want to make sure that you select your category, which we'll go over here in a minute. Your bio is a max of 150 characters, and in the bio you want, that's not a lot of a lot of space to put a lot of information. So what you represent or what to expect, or maybe you have a tagline for your community. Also a website or a Linktree, which allows you to have multiple links. Also your address and again, your contact information. So I mentioned that Linktree, and what Linktree is it's a free app that you can use, and you see in my example here, it's where the URL is. And when someone clicks on your Linktree, it takes you to a little pop-up menu, and you can have multiple links there. And like I said, this is a free app. There is a paid version too, but the free app is pretty robust. You can change the colors, you can add a profile photo, but you can have different links that go, perhaps one is to your website, maybe you have a public campaign that you're pushing at the moment, maybe you have an events page, all different, maybe there's a subscribe to our email, but you can have multiple links there, taking people to where you want them to go. So let's break down your Instagram bio. First of all, you have your profile name, which is the little bold title. In mine, it is social media and marketing. So that's not the same as your username or handle. So this is what is searchable. This is like your SEO. And this is where I would suggest you have City of Gahanna or City of Worthington, for instance, and even perhaps adding Ohio behind it also, if you can fit that with the character limitations. Next, you want to choose the category. And you don't necessarily have to show the category, but Instagram, when you're setting up your bio, will ask for your category. And so some examples, and there are a lot of different categories. I think there's over 1,500. So you just start typing into the search bar different things, but some examples would be non-government organization, nonprofit organization, public and government services. Those are all examples of Instagram categories that you can select. The next is your description with, again, like I said, what you represent, what to expect, or a tagline, and we'll see some examples here shortly. Your address, I like to know if it's a city building, if you have an office, whatever it is, it's nice to see an address there to see where you're located. And then a call to action. And yes, a call to action in your profile. In this case, on my profile, I have DM me for social media hacks, but your call to action could be visit us, get events and news, subscribe to. And you want that right above the line where your URL is. And that URL being, it could go straight to your website, it could go to your Linktree. And here's some examples of some Instagram bios that I thought were worth checking out. Not just their bios, but actually their pages too. And I know you'll get a copy, or you can request a copy of the slides. So you'll be able to go and look at these profiles yourself. But it's an interesting mix of just how they described or use taglines, what calls to action they have, and then you can also see what type of content they have as well. So what do you post? That is the question I get asked a lot from everybody. I get, probably think, it's not that exciting, or you just feel like you're posting the same thing over and over again. But here's the 4 things to think about when you're posting, and just to ask yourself as you're creating your content calendar and your strategy. Is the 4 things that you should cover is you should either inform, educate, entertain, or motivate. And the thing is, it's just, again, like I said, there's so much noise out there in the social media world, and especially when you're on Instagram and scrolling through, and even your Facebook feed scrolling through. So you have literally seconds to grab somebody's attention. So if you hit one of these 4, then you're moving in the right direction. So here's some examples. Informing, public meetings, closures, rerouting. There's a parade this weekend, things like that, city projects and events. Educating, you might have different public service campaigns. Educate your followers about local businesses, whether they're existing or you have new businesses coming in. Behind the scenes, just behind the scenes of what the people in your office and your organization do. Public safety, it could be a pedestrian safety campaign, it could be swimming safety, anything like that would relate to a wide group of people. And parks and programs. Third one being entertaining, funny, relatable. Everybody likes to be entertained. Funny memes, jokes, funny quotes, those sorts of things. Those are always good just to get attention, get engagement. And then the fourth thing being motivate. And that's where a lot of sharing and reposting, nonprofits, giving people some motivation of why they should be visiting you, why they should come to your area, to your community, to your city. But those are the things that you want to keep in mind to, as you're figuring out what our posting strategy is, what our content should be about. So the 6 things you need in your post, purpose. So that's the first thing I think in the back of your mind. And the reason why we're going over these things is because I know, you might just have one person who is dedicated to managing and posting your content for your social media. And that person also might have, 2 or 3 other jobs, wearing multiple hats. So what we're trying to do is just get the most bang for our buck. We want to make sure that what we're putting out there is effective, it gets the message across, that's actually reaching people that we want, to see, our news and communications. So again, first thing is making sure you know what the purpose of the post is, not just putting something out there to put it out there. Then you need a good photo or graphic. So I know we don't always have control over, especially user-generated content, or maybe you're partnering with someone and they gave you some photos that don't look that great, or maybe they're a little bit dark, but it's just do what you can, if possible, to lighten things up, but just make it visible, what is happening in that photo and what the point of it is. If you're using a graphics, so say you're using Canva, for instance, which I know is a popular social media graphics platform, just making sure everything is very clear, it's readable, there's not so much text in the graphic, because no one's actually reading that. You just want like something to stand out, and if you could put your branding or your logo in there, in the bottom center or corner, something like that, so they associate it with you and read the caption, then that's perfect. But again, you want that good photo, graphic, or video, that's going to capture the attention, and hopefully someone stops long enough to actually read the caption, which is number 3, captions for your audience. And I have 4 underlined because we always have to keep in mind of who we are writing and creating content for. It's not for us, it is for, our constituents, our followers, the people in our community. So just thinking, you just try to put yourself in their shoes. They don't know what you know, so you have to give them all of the information. So you can't assume that they know what event you're talking about, or that they know what street it is, or even what date things are going on. You have to give very specific information. The next thing would be location tag. This is a very simple thing on Instagram. You just make sure you add the location, whether it's maybe it's the location of the public pool, maybe it's your office building, maybe it's just the city, maybe it's just Marysville, Ohio. But having that location tag in there is a good thing. And then a call to action. What do you want people to do with this information? If you're sharing something, is it do you want them to go to your website for more information? Do you want them to attend the event? Do you need them to register for something? Or maybe it's share with a friend. It's a good idea to have a call to action, which also promotes and plants the seed for people to engage, possibly comment on what it is that you're sharing. And then hashtags. And we will talk about hashtags in a little bit, and I'll even give some examples of hashtags that you all can be using. And then also I've got a little note at the bottom, tagging others as part of your caption too. I almost forgot to mention that. Tagging others, especially if you're partnering, collaborating, you're sharing content from another organization within your community, tag them so that way you're helping support them. You're alerting others that they also are on social media as well. Plus, that organization gets a notification that they were tagged. And so that's an opportunity that they might take advantage of to share your post. And here's just an example of a feed post on Instagram that I can't say it hits all of the, checks all the boxes, but it checks a lot of them. So this is for Eastvale, the city of Eastvale. And what they don't have a geotag, but they have their first headline, you know, grabs your attention. They give the information for the event taking place. Their visual is obviously good. You see a map. There's obviously something going on, which would make you pause. And then, you know, you have the logo there too. They've tagged the different food trucks that are here in this food truck festival. So by tagging all those food trucks, it's very likely that those food trucks are then going to reshare this content as well. And when that content is reshared, then you will probably get new eyes on you, on your account. And then they give all of the information for the event as well. So this is an example of a post that checks a lot of the boxes. So talking about tagging and hashtags. So why do we want to tag? Why do we want to hashtag? And sometimes it's easy to forget about it. So what I try to do is when I know I'm going to be posting something in which we're going to be mentioning other organizations, I look ahead to see how to tag them on Facebook, how to tag them on Instagram. You probably do the same thing on Twitter, on all the different platforms. But I look up that first. That way I can make sure that I'm including as many people as I can. So that, again, just strengthens your relationships with them. And they'll get a notification if they've been tagged. And you want to make sure on Instagram, for instance, and in Facebook, actually, you want to tag the photo itself. You can tag it within the photos, and then you also want to tag them in the caption. I like to do it both ways just to make sure that they get doubly notified that I'm tagging them and sharing their content. Gives you an opportunity to support others, reaching new people, and even getting reshared. And then we've got hashtags. So hashtags, I know, are one of those things. They seem like a mystery to a lot of people. They don't know how to use them or what hashtags to use. So the latest is latest best practice is to use 8 to 15 hashtags. Hashtags enable you to be discovered. People follow hashtags because they might have a topic that they want to follow and see in their feed, for instance. Anyone knows, you can click on a hashtag and it'll take you to a feed of just posts that use that hashtag. So I've got some here that I think are good hashtags for you to use on probably a bulk of your posts. And so, for instance, the city of, and whatever your city name is, visit, city name, just your city name, Columbus, Ohio, Oxford, Ohio, whatever your tagline is, if you have a tagline for your community. Love, so love Dublin, support, city name, dine, shop, visit, and then as seen in. I know locally here in Central Ohio, as seen in Columbus is quite popular, but what I found is there's an as seen in Bexley, as seen in Clintonville, as seen in, and even if there isn't one, just start it. So, why not? So those are hashtags that you could be using on a lot of your posts or a bulk of your posts. And then after you use those hashtags, then adding more specific hashtags that are specific to the topic of your content. Maybe it's recycling, maybe it's a public service announcement, maybe it's having to do a summer or parades or something like that. So that's my recommendation for tagging and hashtags. And then we're going to move on to Instagram, specifically where you can post. So there's 6 different areas where you can post on Instagram. And the 3 that I have highlighted in yellow are the ones in my opinion, I feel would be very strong for you to use. So one is your feed post. I always think the feed post is going to be the most important. The feed post is where your profile is. Like, the point of social media is to your posts are to drive people somewhere, whether it's driving them back to your profile, driving them back to your Facebook page, driving them back to your website, to take action, some sort of action. So your feed post, if let's just say someone's scrolling through Instagram and they see your post, or someone has shared your post, and they tap on your profile to go to your profile page and see all of your posts, that's where you need to convey within a few minutes, what you're all about. So you could have all this great content, but if that's on stories and lives and things like that. But if you don't have a good solid profile with feed posts that people can look at, then I think you're missing an opportunity. So the feed posts, those live on your profile page. People can go to those at any time. Next thing would be story, which if you're familiar with Instagram, those are all the little circles that are at the top of your phone in Instagram. And so those are active for 24 hours only. And those are just a really good way to, again, show behind the scenes, show the real story behind the work that your organization, that your office is doing, sharing just very real in the moment things even. And also, they don't have to be in the moment. There's a lot of content that I share to stories. It might be something that you captured last week. You don't have to always share something in the moment, but you can save up the video content, save up the photos, and then create a story, that tells a story, basically. So the difference between a feed post and a story is feed post I view as more of the evergreen content and content that you want someone to be able to look at, a week later, a month later, and it's still relevant. Story content is really, like I said, in the moment, and it doesn't really need to be permanently on your feed. And then there's story highlights, which then you can select some of your stories to then be a highlight and always live on your profile. And it might be, maybe you have COVID protocols, maybe you have events is another one. It might be the police department might be another highlight. You can do any number of things there. IGTV is long form video. It's anything that's over a minute, but up to 60 minutes. And this is a great opportunity for you to collaborate with other organizations, show what's going on in your community, interview people, do testimonials. You can show a lot here, and it's not something that you have to actually necessarily create within Instagram. You can do the video, edit it some, and then upload it to your IGTV. And what's nice is it even will do the auto captions for you, unless you want to do the captions yourself using another app. The fourth neighborhood on Instagram would be IG Live, and that's when you actually go live. That is great when you're at an event, or again, maybe you're collaborating or partnering with another organization. You're having maybe a live Q&A. You're talking about a public service campaign. You're launching a campaign, things like that. And what's nice is then, as soon as you're done with that live, you can download it and then save it as an IGTV. So again, that lives also as part of your profile. And those can be up to 60 minutes long. And then the next, I know Mallory had mentioned Reels. Instagram Reels are like TikTok. It's short form video, 15 to 30 seconds, and they are definitely a hot thing as far as people love watching these really quick, fun videos. I enjoy doing them myself. It takes some practice, like all of this does take practice, but it's one of those things that can be kind of intimidating at first. If you have never done TikTok, or if you're just not sure about things. So that's the only reason why I have it kind of lower on the list. It's a great way for engagement and for people to find you. But it's, to me, if you focused on the top 2 or 3 of these, if you're getting started in Instagram, then I think you're going to be okay. And then the last thing is actually guide, which is not talked about very much. It's something that Instagram came out with late last year, and it is curated content in that, so you can form a guide using other people's Instagram posts or your own posts that have already been published. And so, you know, let's just say, for instance, you want to create a guide of all of the public parks in your community. Then you can go to your, you know, your area's park Instagram and grab some of their posts that talk about specific parks. Maybe you had some posts about parks. Maybe there's an influencer or a blogger that had talked about your local parks, and you could add those all into one guide where all of it's together. So those are just to give you an idea of, you know, where all you can post on Instagram. Lots of fun, creative ideas. And again, it's like what you are comfortable with. Again, I know your job is not necessarily content creator. So, you know, what makes the most sense for you to be able to be consistent and post on a regular basis. Okay, the next big thing is how to engage and interact. This is, it takes practice, and it's, you know, the reason why we're on social, well, you know, if we're going to be on social media, we have to be social. And I know that sounds silly to say that, but it is about connection. It's about paying attention. You know, people want to know that you're paying attention, that they're being heard. So how do you engage, especially if you're an organization, if you're a business, an organization, and you have, you know, a lot of different individuals in your community following you. A lot of them might have private accounts. You're like, oh, how am I supposed to engage with people with private accounts? So what I suggest is you follow organizations, businesses, community leaders that you want to connect, partner with, or learn from, and share their content. That is how, that's an easy way to start engaging and interacting with your audience. When you share their content, that's just giving the love. It shows that you're paying attention, that you see what they are sharing out there, and you are supporting it. It's also engaging with your feed, the people, you know, the people that you do follow, by liking, commenting when it's appropriate. If it's something, you know, and again, sharing it to your stories or asking if you can repost it to your own feed. But again, people and organizations, they appreciate that. They're just trying to get their content out there in front of more eyes and more people. And if you're helping them do that, most of the time it's much appreciated. Liking and replying to comments on your posts. I'm always surprised when I go to a business or organization's Facebook or Instagram and I see people have commented and there's not one like on any of the, you know, the person that posted didn't even like the comments or reply back to them. So again, that's just an easy way. It's just what starts conversation. It's acknowledgement that, hey, you took the time to like my post, you took the time to comment on this post, and I'm going to reply back to you. So responding to comments or posts when you're tagged. So on Instagram, you can see when people have tagged you through your notifications, and Facebook, it's the same thing. So just making sure that you, again, you're acknowledging that someone has taken the time to comment, post about you, tag you, you know, and maybe you don't want, there might be a case where you don't want to comment back or reply back there, but you can certainly send them a direct message, you know, acknowledging that, or taking the conversation further. If you're in Instagram, you know, with Instagram stories, the engagement stickers are really fun for you to add, fun way for you to get engagement from your community, asking questions, taking polls, this or that, doing an ask me anything type thing, and, you know, asking your community like what they are interested in. Thing is, it comes into you when they answer these questions, it comes to you privately. And then what you can do is you can start those conversations in the direct messages, respond to them, you can reshare what it is that you would like to be shared, but it's also like great market research for you. What does your community, what are they interested in? What do they want to know more about? So things like that. Making sure you're checking your inbox and your DMs. Instagram and Facebook both, and making sure you're responsive, you're answering them. If you're on Instagram, there's also a special inbox for people that you don't follow and they don't follow you. So making sure you check that as well, just to make sure, again, that you're being responsive. And then the last thing that I have in yellow here is joining and monitoring community Facebook groups. And I'm not sure how much you all are doing that or not, but I think that's a great way to boost your engagement, to have for good PR. So, for instance, I live in Clintonville, and there's the Clintonville discussion forum. So there might be, let's just say, someone makes a comment about, I don't know, maybe a light that's out or something. So if you periodically, monitor those pages, then, for instance, you could see that post, and then you could message that person, ask them, oh, where is it exactly? And then you can find out, maybe you're sending people there to go check it out, and then you can follow up with them afterwards. I know the groups can be quite tricky with, people that are complaining, or they have different ideas. And so you have to be careful about how you interact and engage. That way you don't fan any flames or anything, But you want to, again, by monitoring those pages, you're making sure, you're letting people know, like, we are paying attention. We care about what you care about. We care about what's going on in the community, and we don't have eyes everywhere. So my dad works for the city of Oxford. He's a retired police officer, and Oxford's where I grew up, a few hours from here. And so he works for the city now, and he doesn't, he's in a PR position. He doesn't manage, they actually have social media interns that manage the city's social media, but they have their people like scouring the different community Facebook pages to do just that, just to make sure, like, stop things before they get out of hand, or respond to, water sewer seems to be broken, or a light that's out, something like that. It's so easy, it's so simple to, respond to those, direct message people, let them know, hey, we're checking it out. Thanks for letting us know, or did you know you can call this number? And people appreciate that. They appreciate that you took the time out to engage with them, to respond, and it may be where you can come back later on. Maybe you did fix the light, or you did something. You can go back to that post and then comment to everybody, so everybody sees, like, thanks, we got it handled. So just encourage you to check out the different Facebook groups that are in your community. And most of the time, it used to be where you could only join them as your personal Facebook, but now you can actually join a lot of them as an organization. So that's, I know we went over a lot of different things, as far as best practices go. I think what it comes down to is it's about paying attention. It's about putting out content and information that your audience wants. And you have a lot of content that's at your fingertips that you have access to. So it's a matter of getting it out there and making sure that you're giving all of the information, and making sure when people need more information, they know exactly where to go. So making sure that your bio, your about, your website, everything is like up to date, your contact information. That way, if anyone has any questions, they know exactly where to go and where to learn more. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Jackie. That was very informative, and we appreciate all of our presenters so far. So thank you. If you stay around, we'll be able to ask you questions. I know we're starting to get a lot of questions in the chat, and so I would encourage people to continue. And so before we go to our final presenter, we have another poll. So I know Amanda is preparing that. It's what social media tool, oh, excuse me, nope, that's not it. It's what are your biggest concerns about engaging with your community post-COVID? And it's still happening, but I know as we start thinking for the brighter future, we want to hear what some of your concerns are. So, ready, Amanda?
Yes, can you see it up on the screen, Neil?
Not yet, and mine could be lagging. So no, we just see your pretty profile picture.
All right, let me try that again.
Okay. And then if you want to go ahead and, okay, so it looks like people already started populating this. So about another minute, Amanda.
That sounds good. And it's
Oh.
the same code as the last time.
Okay.
7315371.
Okay. So we'll wait on those results and kind of see what the commonality is here. Sounds like, or looks like, there are some common concerns with everyone in returning post-COVID. Okay.
All right.
All right, these are real concerns. I'm looking to try to see what has the most. Some of them include community perception, losing followers, attitude, let's see, actually showing up. These are all real concerns that we faced prior to the pandemic and probably have been magnified since. So thank you all for your participation. Okay, so finally, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Donna Marbury. She is going to talk about community engagement as well, but from a different perspective. And so Donna and I have known each other, my goodness, I don't want to tell our age because we're teenagers still, but probably for more than 15 years, we've worked in the same industry. And so Donna Marbury is the head of accounts at Warhol in Wall Street. She's a marketing firm that is located in Columbus, Ohio. She has 18 years of experience as a journalist and communications PR specialist. And after working in the corporate and nonprofit sectors, she launched Donna Marie Consulting in 2020 with the goal to help clients create meaningful communication strategies in the evolving digital landscape. She uses her hybrid expertise in journalism and public relations to create impactful B2B and branded communications for organizations, including Smart Columbus, Warhol, and Wall Street, and has written for several trade publications, including Managed Healthcare Executive, Health Tech, Chief Legal Executive, along with Columbus Monthly and Columbus CEO. So please join me in welcoming Donna Marbury. Take it away.
Hello, Nielle. Hello, everyone. I see a couple of friends. Hello, Jackie. That was so informative. So happy to see all of the robust information that you have acquired and are sharing with us today. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to talk to you all about a project that our firm is working on with the City of Columbus. So this is a current live project that you will be able to see tactics that we have put together in the last year. I will say before I get started, I have had wonky internet this whole morning working in a new office. So if you can't hear me or if I start sounding like a robot, please ping me and let me know. So with the go, we can go ahead and get the presentation started. All right, so like I said, this is a project that our firm here at Warhol and Wall Street, we've been working on over the past year. So this started during the pandemic and is about to close out in the next month. So I wanted to go over not only some of the social media tactics that we've used, but the physical, digital kind of hybrid tactics that we've had to put together, along with paying special attention to a community that is a majority Black community and an underserved community. And so there's a lot of factors that play in how to do some outreach to this community. And I thought putting together like a case study would be the most valuable to you all today. So next slide. a little more about Warhol and Wall Street. Very briefly, we're a marketing agency located in Columbus, Ohio. We have clients that include cities, municipalities, but also community organizations, products, and events. We help brands engage with people, moments, community, and culture. And if we go to the next slide, we have a saying here that we don't create for the end user, we create with the end user. And so we have this toolkit of tactics that include all of these things from community engagement, branded content, creative direction, social, digital, all of the great things that we've talked about today, ambassadors, influencers. So how can we pull from this toolkit, work directly with the community to figure out exactly what they need in order for us to get our clients' needs taken care of as well. So this is sort of like the toolkit of things that we pull from. And I know, you know, working with the organizations online, you'll be kind of thinking about these things too, all of these tactics and how do we get them to work together. So next slide. So a little bit more about the project. So this is a project that Warhol and Wall Street is working on currently with the City of Columbus, Michael Baker, and Tool Design. And basically, our goal is to address multimodal connectivity and safety on the Mount Vernon Avenue corridor in near east side of Columbus. And so we are looking at existing conditions, safety improvements, traffic control, pedestrian, and other multiple modes of transportation, the land use character, and alternatives and concepts. The project started in November of last year and will wrap up in September of this year. So like I said, this is an active project. Our role was public involvement, not only with stakeholders, but with the community at large. Next slide. And so this project had some challenges, and as we looked at opportunities, the biggest challenge is the urgent need. This is a community that has seen 192 crashes since 2016, and 69 of those was at a specific corridor at Champion and Mount Vernon, which is a highly active pedestrian and biking corridor, as well as highly active corridor for cars. And if you see in the photo there, that is actually a car that ran into an apartment building, and the anxiety of the traffic situation in this community is very high and very urgent. There is also a history of disruption in this community. Before segregation, the Bronzeville community was a thriving Black community that was really self-contained with businesses and community resources. And post-segregation, the City of Columbus built a highway through the community, which disrupted a lot of things culturally, but also transportation-wise. And so there is a distrust and disconnect between this community and the city. And, you know, like I mentioned before, this is a majority Black community. The city has put forth several efforts to revitalize the community, but from the perspective of those who live in the community, it is also viewed as gentrification. And so sometimes when the city, and I'm sure a lot of the people on the line may have experienced this, when the city starts to make changes in the community, a lot of the existing community members are worried that they'll be displaced. And these are some things that we had to think about when crafting our messaging, storytelling, and tactics in engaging in this community. And then on top of all of that, there was a pandemic. So we had to deal with, you know, a lot of the in-person engagements that we would usually conduct. We had very limited, and we were able to do some towards the end of the project coming into spring, but I will talk about that later. But we had to put our whole plan together with the idea that we want to engage with people, but we can't see them. So that was another kind of caveat. But in that, we really thought the opportunity is, how can we create forums and ways to let the community know that their voices would be heard, and not only heard, but activated. Once again, this is a community that has had some not so positive and reactive experiences with the city. And we were very upfront with the city in our research of putting together our tactics that we cannot shy away from the past of this community and their relationship with the city of Columbus. So whatever we learn from this engagement, we have to make sure that it is activated, and there's some timelines around that. Next slide. So our approach from that, was very direct. We wanted to speak the community's language. We wanted to talk with the community and not to the community. We wanted to bring more unique voices to the conversation. We wanted to meet people where they were, which, like I mentioned before, was a challenge because of COVID. And we wanted to bring about change. We didn't want to do an engagement activity that didn't result in something, considering the high anxiety around some of the intersections that were already, people were experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Next slide. So let's start talking about branding and storytelling. So I will begin just with the name of the advisory coalition. And so we had a group of 10 to 15 stakeholders, and I'll talk more about how we put those people together in the next slide. But it was an informal group, right? This is the group of people who have influence in the community. We wanted them to be informed on the very specific details of this project. We wanted to get their insight, but we knew that they weren't voting. They weren't, didn't really have it was more of an informal. And so we came up with the term advisory coalition very intentionally, wanting people to feel like, as a coalition, that their collective voice mattered, and that they could advise the project, but it wasn't like they were making formal recommendations. And so that was an intentional naming of that group. I also want to speak about the name of the community. And so, like I mentioned before, prior to the 60s, this community was a very thriving Black community called Bronzeville. And as the community took a downturn through the decades, our previous mayor kind of renamed the community the King Lincoln District, where in the city realm, people call the community the King Lincoln District. But on the neighborhood level, people are still calling it Bronzeville. And so we were very intentional in making sure in our communications that we use the word Bronzeville to talk to the community, because that's what they called themselves. And so I think when you are putting together projects and as districts are forming and new businesses are coming in, just be very mindful if there is a way that the community talks to themselves versus the way the city talks about the community. And then acknowledging the neighborhood's history. Once again, this is a thriving, rich cultural community that has a lot of history that people are very proud of. And in our meetings with our advisory coalition, we found videos, we found snippets, old and new, from news reports, from the Cultural Society, which showed how rich and thriving the community was and hopes to be again. And it was a great way to kind of level set with the group that, hey, we know what your dreams and aspirations are, and we are not trying to displace that or change that. And I think it was also great for our project team as well to understand that, yes, we want to make these mobility and safety changes, but we also have to acknowledge that these changes come with something more than just putting concrete on the street. This is a community that likes to be connected and be a part of each other. And when a sidewalk is crumbled, that matters in a different way than just a sidewalk being crumbled. And so we wanted to make sure that we are acknowledging the community's history. And even in the branding that we put together for the logo, once again, a very thriving, cultural rich community, lots of grassroots and arts and culture organizations in the community. So we pulled a bright color palette. We acknowledged the unique architecture in the community when putting our branding together, and we didn't shy away from that. And I would encourage, we wanted something to be eye-popping, to fit in with the community, but also, acknowledge the community and its vibrancy at the same time. And so we were also very intentional in our bold branding to make sure that whatever assets we were putting in the community would stand out. Next slide. So like I mentioned before, we had this advisory coalition group, which was about 10 to 15 members of the community who we would engage with directly through virtual meetings and give them kind of the nuts and bolts of the project. And we also wanted them to share out information with the community as we were putting together a community survey and other aspects of the project that we wanted the community at large to know. We were very intentional about not just pulling the people who are always apart, right? There's always those people who show up to everything, and those people are great. We love them. Like, they keep their ear to the street, they know what's going on, and they are activated. But there are also people that are in the community that aren't necessarily the director or the head of an organization, but they have a lot of community pull and influence. In this picture, there is a person in Columbus, Ohio named Rita Fuller Yates, who is just a community historian. She knows a lot about the city of Columbus, especially the Black community. She has a Facebook group of about thousands of people where she's just sharing out information about the city of Columbus. She's not the director of anything. She's just someone who is a community influencer and advocate. And she holds these monthly meetings in the Bronzeville community called Community Conversations, where people just get together and talk about community issues. We were able to connect with her to have a community conversation about mobility and safety right at that intersection that is giving the community a lot of anxiety around crashes. And that session was streamed on her Facebook Live. And so we were able to make that connection. And if we were just Googling names, we may not have came up with her, but because we were really thinking and being intentional about bringing diverse people and different people to the table, we were able to make a really solid connection with her. Also with arts organizations, grassroots, there are several biking and walking clubs in the community. So we knew that they would have very active, very pointed feedback with us on how to make this corridor safer, and bringing them to the table was a very valuable piece to the success of this project, as well as once we got those people in meetings and got them engaged, we did ask them to share information on their social media, through email, and even in person. And so knowing that COVID would be a challenge, we had a couple of different tactics on how we did that. One was creating a social media toolkit. Because of the duration of this project being a year, we didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to stand up and curate a social media presence, because we knew that that would be a challenge. How many people are interested in mobility? Like, of course, from a marketing perspective, I'm like, yeah, everyone should care, and they do care. But are they going to follow and engage on social media? Maybe not. But they would follow, all of the people in our advisory coalition who are community organizations to community influencers. So why not just empower them with our message instead of trying to own the message ourselves? So that was a tactic that we decided to do in order to save some scope on our end, but also just time of trying to stand these social platforms up to only use for a year. Next slide. So some of the tactics from our toolkit, as you can see, one of the challenges, like I said before, is having to engage people without having to see them in person. And so we made these huge banners, like 6-foot banners, and affixed them in the community to get feedback on a community survey. There was a QR code, there was a website, and this particular banner is right outside of 2 apartment complexes with over 1,000 people, so it was highly visible. And so that was a great way to, with our bright and bold branding, to get the community's eyes on what we wanted them to see. We engaged our advisory coalition through virtual meetings, and as everyone had to at the time, but it was a very successful way to talk to people and not only connect our message, but help the community make connections within themselves. And so having people from the city, having people from our transit authority on that line, it made it easy for the bike community to talk to the transit authority, and interconnections happened as well. We deployed a survey that was online and printed. And so the printed survey, what we chose to do was connect with the church community who were handing out baskets and still connecting with people. And they were able to drop that survey that was already postage paid in a lot of their baskets and food baskets that they were already giving out. That was successful. And then the apartment complexes that were in the community literally printed out surveys and dropped them off and had people return them to the front office. And so we did have to actually print things to align, as well as having the online survey where people would visit a website and just take the survey through a Google form. As I mentioned before, we had banners, posters, hot cards. This was a community that had a huge digital divide. There were people who didn't have Wi-Fi access. There are people who were older who weren't used to using the internet. And so we had to reach people where they were. We had banners and postcards, hot cards in barbershops, hair salons, throughout the corner stores in the community. So even if they were seeing messages online or on Facebook, they were seeing them again as they were walking down the street. They were seeing them again as they were getting their hair done. So we wanted to continue for them to see this logo, see what this is, and eventually get to our website or take that survey so they could be a part of the conversation. And then, we had to call people on the phone too. So, and it was kind of a no-brainer. Hey, let's just call people, let's get the church directory out and call people. And a lot of the good feedback that we got was just calling people, calling older people, calling, hey, well, you know, Miss such and such up the street, she walks down the street all the time and she takes her grandmother or granddaughter to school. She might have an idea. We literally had to make phone calls, and that was, you know, an outreach technique that we hadn't used in a while, but it was very successful, and it showed the community that we were willing to take an additional step in order to get their feedback. So it was beneficial on our end, but it also helped to make that connection. And once again, our goal was to kind of mend some of the relationship between this community and the city. And then finally, we had co-create sessions where towards the end of our engagement, so this was in May, when the world was kind of opening up again, we could be outside. We did that setup right there at that intersection that was causing the most anxiety in the community. And we had a map of the corridor. We had Post-it notes, and we just asked people, like, show us where you're having issues getting around. Why is this bus stop here? This intersection right here drives me crazy. Or people are speeding right here. Or this sidewalk is crumpled up and I can't use my stroller. And we just popped up there and let people from the community just tell us exactly where things were giving them a hard time and was a pain point. And people just wanted to be heard. A funny kind of thing that came out of this, there was a man who came by on a unicycle, and he was like, I can't ride my unicycle up and down the street most of the days because the cars are speeding. And I'm like, well, never would have met this man had we not just popped up on this corner. And you just never know who you're going to meet when you are in the community. But he was a huge bike advocate, and he had, I think he had like 5 or 6 bikes altogether. So it was just really great having that one-on-one conversations with them. And then the members of our project team were also there to answer those tough questions, because, you know, there were also people there like, well, why now? Or what does this mean? And the city got to answer those questions directly, face to face. And that was very helpful, I think, in, once again, mending that relationship. Next slide. So the results. So we did a community survey. We had over 200 responses. We did sessions with our advisory coalition. The city and the engineers heard the community's urgency, and that was the biggest thing. There couldn't be 2 or 3 years between this study and what needed to happen. And so because of our engagement, we were really able to quantify the need and also put the people in front of the people who could make the change. And so a temporary solution is coming to that intersection that I mentioned in the next couple of weeks. We're actually announcing it at a meeting in 2 weeks, and I think it'll be deployed in September with a goal to have a permanent solution in early 2022. And so I think the urgency and the platforms that we were able to provide the community showed the urgency, and we were able to move up a project that was really a couple of years down the line. So I'm really excited. There's also been some talk of putting in some more like rich and vibrant streetscape. And it's simple things like a trash can that has local art on it, recycling bins. And so the community is really excited. We've aligned with arts organizations that can really put their stamp on a lot of the changes that are coming. And it is coming sooner than it was coming. And we continue to communicate with the Advisory Coalition to give them updates, which now they are very excited to share out with their neighbors, family, to let them know that their urgent conversation with the city has resulted in change. And so, like I said, this is a project that is wrapping up in September with that temporary solution coming to that intersection. But we're able to really demonstrate to the community that having some meaningful dialogue and being able to quantify it and show it in a way will really help to make change in the community. I think that is my last slide.
Well, thank you, Donna. We have
Yes.
certainly enjoyed all the information that you and the other presenters have given us today. I know I've been taking copious notes. And so what we want to do now, we understand that we are running a little bit behind schedule. And for those who have attended this in times past, we've actually condensed it because we are virtual. So what I'd like to do at this time is turn things over to Rolanda Hampton, our Diversity, Inclusion, and Engagement Officer, to take a couple questions that we received in the chat. And so if all of our presenters can go ahead and turn their cameras on and answer, we'll just spend the next couple of minutes doing that. And then what we hope to do is when we send out the link to our YouTube, to the presentation on YouTube, we'll list all of the questions and have answers from our presenters. So we'll do a comprehensive list. So if we don't get to your question, don't worry about it. We'll try to address it in the follow-up. So Rolanda, take it away.
Thank you so much, Niel. Yes, this has been an awesome forum, and thank you all. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you. So the first question is, how often should you post on different platforms? Should you post daily, twice a day? And how long should you wait to repost that content? Should you put a new spin on it? So please feel free, anyone can chime in, unmute yourself, and thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Jackie. As far as how often to post, I mean, I definitely no more than once a day. And honestly, I don't even think you need to post every day. I know that there's going to be certain times of the year or parts of the season where there is a lot more going on and there's a lot more information to share. So you'll probably have more posts those weeks. But if you try to stick with a consistent, let's just say it's anywhere from 3 to 5 posts a week, and knowing that one of those is probably going to be event related, public service related, you know, another one's going to be sharing other people's content from hopefully another organization or department, something like that. And then, you know, but it's just, that's a lot of, to post every day or a few times a day is just a lot of content. And again, the more you post, every time you post, you have to build in that time for engagement too. So just, you know, use stories, you know, Facebook stories and Instagram stories to share like the one-offs and quick things. But as far as like the meat and potatoes of your content, stick with, you know, 3 to 5 really good posts a week if you can. And if it ends up being 2 or 3 in a week, then that's fine too. And as far as repurposing, I would say, you know, let's just say there's a regularly scheduled meeting every month. You know, it's certainly fine to certainly post that once a month, but then again, use the stories to remind people and share, you know, share that post to stories or share different content about that meeting, for instance. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Great. Thank you, Jackie. Our next question is, what advice do you have for possibly a new business, someone who's new to Instagram? Is it better to focus on gaining followers, or is it better to focus on the content?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
So, I mean, you need both. You need good content, but you also need followers. I mean, you can put out content, but if you have no one following you, so it's a matter of again, getting, you know, what I suggest is getting a content plan and knowing what content you're going to be putting out there, and maybe starting your Instagram account and starting to follow other people first. You know, friends, different partners, different organizations, different businesses that you know, and also talking about it in your conversations, in your email, website, your other social media platforms, but trying to get a following. It's amazing. There are people that follow accounts that have no posts. So but you can easily get the people that you know rallied around you, I feel like. And then when you start actually publishing content, you have some people that are actually going to see it, because Instagram's not just going to put it out there for random people. So you really have to have that good content, but you have to have the followers first.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that response. I think we'll have 2 more questions because we want to be respectful of our time. So the next one is, are there any disadvantages to listing hashtags in the comments as opposed to below the post on Instagram? And then what advice do you have for addressing negative comments?
I can take part of this if you'd like. This is Mallory. I think as far as hiding the hashtags, and Jackie, feel free to chime in if you disagree, but with what we've seen is, you can really do it either way. It's kind of a vanity thing. So if you'd like them to show or not show, it doesn't really affect their performance as far as using the hashtags. It's just really making sure that you're using the right hashtags and the right amount of hashtags. And then what was the second part of the question?
Okay, and the second part of the question is, how do you address negative comments? So for example, let's say if someone, wrote you something on Twitter or Instagram, sometimes I know we have those trolls who like to just comment. Yes, exactly. Negative comments.
So typically with negative comments, our best practice is to, if it's a public facing comment, and we can redirect them to a private message or DM where we can handle the conversation privately, we'll do that. If it's something where they're using, really derogatory language, or it's like extremely negative, we can go ahead and hide the comment, because if it's on Facebook, because the nice thing about hiding comments on Facebook is they won't know that their comment has been hidden. But typically using, a good customer service response and just acting calm and non-accusatory and understanding, and asking them to send you a private message so you can discuss it privately is usually the best way to handle it, so it can't escalate from there.
Thank you. Great response. Yes, Donna, please.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on that, because with our project, we specifically dealt with a situation where we received a negative comment around the fact that, they're just coming into the community, or they're going to displace us. And the city was very concerned about that narrative, as it was a post that had like 50 plus comments on it, and it was a lot of conversation. And, I just felt like let's address their concerns. Like, let's jump in and have the conversation with them. The person ended up coming to our in-person event and was like really understanding of the project, and understanding that we were trying to put an action plan together and not just, talk. And so I think not being afraid to kind of have a good conversation, a robust conversation. Now, if it does start to get into misinformation or name calling or derogatory language, of course, those tactics of, hiding comments and all of that is like very helpful. But I also feel like, be open to, sharing links and providing information to people who are misinformed about what you are discussing in your social posts.
That's very true. And I do think that if you're going to be posting about, a topic that will be controversial or may like spark engagement like that, it's good to prepare ahead of time too with some of those responses and have those links ready to go. And it's just a good kind of crisis communication best practice as well.
I agree. Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes to, again, I mentioned before, like just acknowledgement. People just want to know that they're heard and seen, and I just, anything negative, I just direct to the DM. Even if you're commenting like, oh, we'll private message you, we'll DM you, so that way they know. Again, like even that initial response, just like, okay, we saw it, and we'll take it elsewhere.
Great feedback. Thank you. And so our last question is, public engagement is challenging for some of our projects. Any advice on social platforms, engagement tactics, and also please feel free to chime in. Tell us, I know we heard from Jackie, but I'll be interested on how often do you post? I know Jackie mentioned she posts once a day or, 3 to 5 times out the week. Donna, I think you wanted to chime in on that. Please feel free.
Yeah, public engagement is challenging. I think it is unique to each community. Like I said, really do your research on the community that you want to engage with, and don't assume. So it's demographics, it's also psychographics, it's behavioral, it's historical, it's businesses, it's small businesses, large businesses, who lives in rental properties versus owns their home, schools, it's so many different things. And if you can pull together all of these factors, you'll begin to create a picture of who your audience is and who you're talking to. Different messages will go to different people. Different tactics will be for different audiences. And so, the way you speak to a family with elementary school kids is going to be different than a landlord or a tenant. So be able to kind of, and plug, you might need an agency to kind of help you suss that out. But just think that there are different audiences, there's different ways to talk to different people, and there are different organizations within that community that create the landscape of who it is. So it takes a lot of prep work. Like, you may have a whole engagement strategy just for your faith-based community or your young professionals. So just kind of thinking about who makes up this community is number one. And then you'll know you'll get a better sense of where they are and how to talk to them.
Would anyone else like to quickly give their thoughts on engagement?
Oh, I totally agree with what you said, Donna. It is important to know where your audience is coming from, where they are, and that is, that's, I think, like all of everyone who's on here today, you're in a unique position in that your audience is so wide. There's so many different facets to your audience. There's so many different interests. So you have to speak to so many different people, and it helps to be on the different platforms, because it's very rare that you're going to have one person following you on all of your platforms. Some people like to get their news off Twitter. Some people like Instagram. Some people like Facebook. Some people like Nextdoor. It just depends on who the person. So it's just kind of it is keeping that in mind. And I know it can seem overwhelming, but it's just you just kind of tackle a little bit at a time. It's important to have that strategy. If you're able to work with an agency or with someone like Donna, for instance, and that messaging and storytelling and how that goes across all the different platforms, then, that's wonderful. I tend to work with much smaller businesses, smaller teams of people where it's, it can be challenging with how do we get that out to so many people. So, if you can just start the engagement with, the more platforms you're on, the more you have to engage. You can't just put it out there. You can't just tweet and ignore it. You can't, and all the comments and everything on there. So just keep that in mind. Whatever you decide that you're going to be on, you kind of have to go full on. You have to be engaged. So just kind of keeping that in mind. If you have to dial it back, and maybe not be on as much, or you know what I mean? So
yes, great points.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, well, thank you all so very much. Now we'll turn it over to our MORPC Communication and Engagement Director, Neil Juris, for our close.
Well, thank you all again. Fantastic job. Again, I learned so much more. One of the reasons why we do this is so that our local government partners are equipped with the knowledge and with best practices to be excellent. So again, thank you for your participation. Special thank you to the C&E team for putting this together. And of course, to our presenters again, We will have the full recording, and we will compile a list of questions with answers from our presenters. And so, as always, we look forward to any feedback to improve or any suggestions for next year. So until then, have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Goodbye, everyone.